welcome to my channel here. I'm going to try something new, a repair video. I've been doing bike repair now for almost 9 years, going on 9 years here this summer. And I've been running this place for about 8 years. And you know, I do most of the repairs that come through here. We're at Bike Newport here and on the Oregon coast. I got a couple of new trainees that I'm getting up now, but as of, the last probably 3 or 4 years, I've done most of the repairs in this place. And so I've learned a lot about bike repair, and I'm going to show you my minor tune-up because it's slow, and I'm going to do a video on this bike. I'm going to go ahead. Her wheel is got some wobble to it, so that hub needs to be tightened, but I'm going to go ahead and just repack it because, an old bike like this lady's coming out from New York, could probably use it. It's a frayed cable, and this is a decent bike. It's got Campanello products on it, a nice Bianchi frame. It's got a Campanello front derailleur. I love these front derailleurs from Campanello because these things have a lot of trim. I always personally, whenever I start on a bike, I check the chain with my Park Tool chain checker. Let's see here. I always just check it for the 75. And it's not dropping in there, so we'll call that good. Someone said TriFlow can give you cancer. I just like to see where I'm at. I like to feel, I'm going through these gears here. I'm feeling how the cable's moving, and that cable's moving pretty crusty in there. I can feel it dragging. It should just snap, 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 and you're having to push a little bit. You can feel the cable in the housing. Obviously that wheel is wobbling, but we're going to fix that. The brake feels decent when I squeeze the brake here. I like to squeeze them both to see if they snap back. A little TriFlow in there, and those will be perfect. Let's see here. I'll check the front derailleur feel. There's probably a little TriFlow in there. I can get that one. That back cable needs to be changed, though. It feels good. Front wheel's solid. All right, time to take off this wheel. I always start off by dropping into the highest gear here. Which one's it? Dropping into the highest gear. Makes it easier to take off the wheel and put it back on. Got that through axle there. I might even have a cap here to give her to replace this. This is just an old busted cap. I'll give her a new one. First thing I check before I do anything with the wheel is if these nuts are actually tight on here. They are tight though. So I will put this in the stand and let's get this cassette off of here. As you can see right here, I keep these old quick release axles. Instead of throwing them away until I bend, I put it in a vise. Makes it easier to put a wheel in here so I can get right to the tool and work on this. All right, so apparently these Campanello freehub bodies use a freewheel tool instead of a cassette tool, because this is a cassette tool right here, right? And it doesn't fit in here. But my freewheel tool does fit in here. Learned something new today. Campy's a little new to me. I'm pretty sure I can do this wheel though. It's not rocket science. I've done a lot of wheels. Chain whip out here. All right. There we go. 50 Newton meters torque. A lot of torque. That certainly didn't feel like it was 50 Newton meters. Campanello stuff has all this weird stuff on here. It's nice stuff though, that's for sure. It's just different. All right, so let's see here. All right, so this is the first time I've taken apart a Campy Mirage rear wheel, and I didn't want to just start getting into it, but there's no flats on either of these hubs right here. There's no like a little NARP, little pin that you could loosen to remove the cap. There's no way here that I see that you can normally take a wheel apart where you have a cone wrench and you have your box wrench and then you open it up. So what I did was, I looked through there and I could see that it was a through axle. So you can see it's sealed bearings. And I just took two 17s and popped open the sides, and that's, sure enough, that's how it works. So, because I try to tighten it down and it still wiggles. So, I mean, that means that those bearings in there are just done. See, and now I take off this one side, this nut on this side, take off this cap, and I can just push this right through here. Obviously, be careful of the bearings and the springs right through here, but you got to be careful. See all those springs and pawls? You got to be careful of those. Let me put this down real quick. So right here on this campy Mirage Free Hub body, the thing you got to worry about. I mean, I'm going to take it all apart anyway and clean it, but are these springs, a little hard to see there, those springs and pawls, because you don't want to lose those. You probably can't even find those. You can see this bearing right here, it looks pretty good, but this bearing right here, see that bearing? It looks like crap and it feels like crap. So, it looks like I'm lucky that there's 601 RS, and I just so happen to have a couple of 6001 RSs in stock. So, let's get the bearing puller. Alright, so if you don't have the right tool for this, like a Park Tool bearing extractor here, this is the SHX.1/1. Obviously, you don't need this. You can get probably a cheaper bearing extractor. You can always try to bang these out, but on a one like this, it's going to be hard because you can see there's no real lip. There's no real lip in here for you to get behind the bearing. I mean, there's a very small lip. Back in the day, I probably could have got into there and got that out, but I have the right tool now, so the right tool is always going to be good. I mean, you're not saving these bearings, but you just kind of want to scuff up that inner part of the hub there. Especially when it's other people's stuff. So, what is this? 10 to 14 millimeters. You can always measure your bearing here. Let's get that inner size there. That's about 12 millimeters, so this should be the one right here. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put it in here, and I want to get this lip right against the back of this. That's pretty, I can feel it snagging there, so I want to grab, I think it's a 17. Yeah, 17. And what do I need for that? So 17 and 19 for the bearing extractor here, because I like to get this set up first. What I'm going to do is basically expanding this as much as I can here. So it's nice and secure in there. Then we get the other two parts of the bearing extractor here. The slide hammer. They call this a slide hammer. It's a hammer that slides, I guess. I don't know. I'm just a dumb old bike mechanic here. And put this on here. We'll see. And then, bam, pull that bearing right out. And now the other side here, let's see. So I was lifting up as I was pulling, just to make sure I was grabbing that lip. Alright, and bam. I like to keep these little magnetic things here so I can put parts, because this is the inner shaft inside, you know, and that's what you don't want to ding up on the inside if you can avoid it. That's why a slide hammer is nice. This one over the non-drive side, and these are the two bearings. This is your regular bearing, non-drive side bearing, and the drive side bearing. Alright, I'm sitting here, I'm wondering how am I going to take this thing apart, right? And I just pushed back and it just slid right off, so that's nice. Because I want to check I gotta make sure that I don't lose those 3 springs. They're in there pretty good, but I want to check these bearings in here just to make sure that I get all the bearings while I have this wheel apart. And we might as well clean it, because I mean, look at all this gunk. What is that? Yeah, it's all gunky. It's gross. Alright, once again, make sure you don't lose everything. In fact, I'm going to put this onto this just the way it goes on in here. Let's look in here, let's clean this out. These are 6901. I probably have these. That one feels good though. I'm feeling that one. You can usually feel when these bearings are not good. See if we can get. There's a little thing right here. I could probably get that out. Yeah, see, look at bam. But I mean, if you look back there, you can see how gross. I don't know if you can see, but there's just a bunch of gross water back there. The grease is definitely starting to break down. I might as well try to remove these springs. Basically what I'm doing is I'm taking these springs and I'm just going to take them out real quick here. And there, and put them in my thing with the other pawls, because I do not want to lose this stuff. All this stuff is pretty easy to put back together. You can see how dirty it is though, so I want to clean it. I want to actually clean this. I'm going to take these out too. Alright. So we got 2 6901s, and in fact I have a couple of 6901s in here. So I'm going to pull these 2 out and I'm going to replace them. Alright, so I got my bearing press in there. Luckily with these bearings, if I really had to, I'd just bang them out because I'm not going to replace them anyway. I'm not going to put them back in there. But we don't need to do that. Not when we have a bearing puller. Plus, I like to use this thing. It's a new tool we got this summer, so I like to use it when I can to get as familiar as possible with it. Because I mean, I'm sure just like with everything else, you know, technique. Springs and technique, right? Any tricks when you run into problems. There's one bearing. Make sure I don't lose that in the spacer in between. They really pack these things with grease. Look how much grease is in there. That's wild. Let's clean all this grease out of there. Pop that C-clip out. Let me remove the C-clip. So the old mechanic that was here way before me, like 9 years ago, made this tool. So let's see. I don't know if you can even see in there. So I have to get, there we go. See, C-clip out. Because you really want to avoid putting a screwdriver in there or trying to use like an awl or something to pull it out and bend this C-clip up. If you want to reuse it again, that is. And let's see here. I got it on there. Now it should be coming out now, but there it goes. That was in there. That one didn't want to come out. Well, there it is. That one feels crappy. Like, I can feel how crappy that one feels. So now that all the bearings are out, I can take a little speed clean here and just give it a nice little scrubbing real quick. Make it look like new again. I got this thing pretty cleaned out now. It's looking pretty good there, right? All nice, even in those little holes right there. These little holes right here for the springs. Got those nice and clean, or cleaner. Alright, so I'm going to put this thing back together. We'll start with the bearings. Got the bearing here. Alright, 6901. 6901. It's really nice to have this Will Manufacturing bearing press. It makes everything just so much nicer. Oh, you know what I should do is add some grease in there first. This is a completely sealed bearing, so I don't have to pack it like that. But I do want to add some grease in there. I'm going to use this Finish Line, the premium grease, because it's a little nicer, it's a little thinner. Because I mean, it's one thing I always tell, you know, the other people here is that too much grease can be just as bad as not enough grease. Alright, so get that lined up. There I got my bearing press all in here, so it's everything's lined up. I like to double check. Always better safe than sorry, right? Press that in until it stops, because it's going in real nice and smooth. I know it's right. Here we go. Alright, first bearing is in there, and next is the C-clip, of course. I'm going to put just a little bit of grease on top of this for the C-clip. So we're going to take the C-clip, grab the C-clip here, squeeze it in. Bam. We pop that thing in there. Boom, in there. Almost like I know what I'm doing. I almost look like I know what I'm doing. I do want to get a better C-clip tool because this is just a modified pair of pliers. I got that one right. Alright, so with the second bearing, we got to make sure we put this in there. So put it, let's see, this in here like this in here like this. Throw this over the top like that. Yay, so put the bearing in. Get my 6901, here it is. I like to always make sure it's even there. I don't want to try not to start this at an angle if I can help myself. Alright. There we go. Alright. Got the spacer in there. I think I need to. And plus, as you can see, that little spacer isn't completely right where I want it, but when I put that through axle through, it's going to be. There we go. When I put the, I'm gonna put this back in. All right, so we got the ring here. The ring is gonna go right there. This is basically how it wants it to look, right there, just like that. And I gotta do that with all three there. I'm basically taking this spring, get in the hole there, go in your hole, make sure it's in the hole. Then I want to orient so that that little hole up there is at the top. If you saw that, but there's a little hole in there. Bam, like that. Basically like this. Put a little grease right there so it stays in there. Bam. And now I can put this to the side and be careful with it until I reattach it to the wheel. All right, next I'm going to clean out this wheel. So, and do a quick clean. All right, so the wheel's nice and clean. And so the thing I like about taking all the bearings out on any kind of wheel rebuild, hub rebuild, is that I could use speed clean in there without having to worry about destroying anything. All right, so the wheel is good. I'm just gonna clean this off real quick. All right, so we're putting this wheel back together. I got this through here. These pop out a lot easier than most of them do. Most of them don't pop out so easily. Some weird campagnola thing, you know. Just gonna set it right there on my thing and just not touch it for now. I can grab my wheel here, and the first thing I'm gonna do is press the bearing in. That's right. All right, let's press these bearings in on the wheel. All right, so for pressing these wheel bearings in here, I got my wheel bearing press once again, 6001. Pop that there. I'm gonna pop the spacer in the middle, and this one is gonna be on the outside. Throw a little grease. Pawl surface here. Just throw a little grease on this whole surface in here. There we go. We get the wheel in here. We get this thing on here. Once again, as soon as you get it close, make sure everything is straight leveled as you possibly can make it. Because you really don't want to be going in here at an angle and ruining where these press into. It'll create a whole nother race. Alright, there we go with that. One more. There we go. Yikes. That's crazy there. So now that that's all in, all right, now that that's all in, we can put this through here. Once again, we got to make sure probably to grab these little these pawls right here and try to push them in as we're pushing this in. It's going to be a difficult task. Let me start it at least. There it goes. All right, that might have been the single hardest free hub body thing I had to put back together. I just had to grease the hell out of it, make it so those pawls couldn't just pop out of there so easily, but I got it on there, so it's I had to just turn the camera off because that was a little bit harder than I feel like it should have been. And last but not least is these two things here. Let me clean them real quick actually, and we can tighten this wheel back down and be done with this wheel. Honestly, a loose bearing hub would have been easier than that. Or a hub I've done before. I've not done Campagnolo before when it comes to replacing sealed bearings, so it was a little bit different, but we figured it out. All right. Put this on, put this sleeve on right here. That's the outer sleeve. Don't be stupid. I don't want any kind of movement off of that. If that free hub body pops out of there, I'm gonna freaking I'm quitting. All right. Screw this back in. All right. Then we get 217s. Tighten down. Only works on this hub because on a normal hub you couldn't do that. That would compress the bearings so much that they'd be unusable, but this is different, so. All right. All right, let's put it in the stand. Look at that. No more wiggle. So one of those bearings was definitely bad. It was hard to tell which one it was. Maybe a couple of them were bad, but there was definitely wiggle in the frame before. But now there is no more wiggle. And now I can true this wheel. So on a wheel here that we're just going to do, brand new wheel that had some water damage to it in that hub. I mean, these look pretty good, honestly, but I'm going to throw a little bit just in case. Couldn't hurt it, especially here on the Oregon coast. Spin it, get some centrifugal force going, right? Is that what they call it? I don't know, I'm stupid. All right. I always start with my green one because it's usually the one I use. You never want one that's too big, and it's my smallest one, so that one fits. Right here, let's see here. Ooh, that feels like a loose spoke. See, that one feels tight. That one feels tight. This one feels like super loose. Sometimes right there you can get away with just tightening one spoke. True wheels, right? I can get into this. I can now officially build a whole wheel set. Dish, lateral, radial, lace. I can do it all. Pick out the spokes. Usually a $100 tune-up does not come with wheel bearing, or at least a sealed bearing repack. I have to admit, a lot of full tune-ups I'll do the loose bearing pack, because I mean that's a 20-minute job. That's what I kind of thought this was going to be. Yeah, this wheel's a hump too. Probably about 2 millimeters. Not terrible. I've seen worse on machine-built wheels, and this is a machine-built wheel, so. Do a couple more here. I don't want to try to chase perfection on a wheel like this. Trying to put this back on. Oh, look at Campagnola. Every single ring on here is individual. Nice. I could have probably slid it back on, but honestly, this I like because you can then, this is easy to clean. If you stayed on top of this, like if she paid me for a full tune-up, man, I'd make this thing shine. This thing would look like new by the time I get it back to her. I don't see a lot of Campy here on the Oregon coast. A lot of Shimano, a lot of Sharam, not a lot of Campy. It's interesting stuff. Apparently this Mirage stuff isn't even like that high end when it comes to Campy. But like you wouldn't see this kind of build like through axle with sealed bearings until you got into like a mid-ranged wheel on like Shimano or Sharam. I used to hate doing hub work, but honestly in the winter here I have time to get better at things that I don't like. And so a lot of people got free hub rebuilds. I mean, you know, along with their tune-ups. I guess they weren't necessarily free. They came in paying for tune-ups, but they'd get added stuff. I was a bike mechanic here for one summer as a part-time mechanic before I just kind of got thrown in the deep end. The year after that, the main mechanic quit. He taught me how to bleed brakes like 10 days before he left. It was a wild time back then. I was a lot grumpier back then. But I do like repairing bikes. I'm a full-time bike commuter. I've ridden my bike all the way across the country from North Carolina to here. I don't have a license. I've never had a license. I've pretty much been a bike commuter my entire life. Nice and clean. Look at that. Oh, you can see right in there. Look at that. And that was just a quick little wipe down. And that's the bike Newport difference. All right, let's put it back on the wheel. All right, so I always put it in here, grab the derailleur, put it on the low or the high ring there. Pop that bad boy in there with my knee. Close it up. I'm always checking the chain stays too to make sure that there's even. All right, so I just realized that these are Campagnola specific. So I just found another end cap on this side because all she had before was this thing right here, and this is a broken end cap. Basically, this with the black part broken off. So I just found another black cap and kept it because I'm sure she wants to keep her Campy quick releases. All right, I'm gonna chew this front one real quick. The more wheels you chew, the more you realize why a machine doesn't really build the best wheels. Because it's more than just about numbers. It's more than just numbers. That one's tight right there. Part tool is smart. They got this white thing right here and white right here, so it's pretty easy to distinguish. All right, we're finishing up there. I just had a customer. It's funny, it's been slow all day. It's been raining. It's crazy. And when it's crazy, rainy, and cold out, bike shop is slow. Good time to do this kind of stuff. But the only customer I've had today came to pick up her $500 repair. People out here, man, they leave their bikes just like in a shed for years, and they'll be rusted out, or just the weather has just corroded everything. And so they got to pay me $150 to get it, to repack all the bearings, get it shining again, and then they got to replace their brakes, especially if they have old SRAM or Avid juicy brakes. Those things are almost always bad. You almost never see a 10-year-old pair of those things. All right, this is done. All right. There's a spring here, obviously. Hopefully that doesn't pop out. There's a ring right there. I mean, what is that ring even doing? I don't understand what that ring's doing. Oh, another spring fell out. Just found something. That's a broken, there's no way it's meant to be like that. That is broken. That's broken in half. And somebody like put a spring or something in there it's broken in half. Definitely broken in half. Oh, the girl said she just bought this bike too. All right, that sucks for her. Let's see if I can get that out. We might get lucky. I might get lucky and get that out of there, mate. It's moving. So it's coming out now. All right, let's see if I can replace that. See if I can replace that. At least have video evidence that I didn't break it. All right, so I just got a basic Shimano one here. Working. Luckily, that isn't some kind of weird thread pitch. Hey, it works. It doesn't look ugly and it doesn't look out of place. So, see, I mean, it looks fine to me. So right here is where this one goes in. I swear, man, every spot's different around here. You know what I should do real quick while I have this cable out? A little speed clean up in these gears real quick. Those paws are probably sticky. So I'll get a little speed clean in there. Time to replace the cable now. Up through that hole, and let's see what kind of lucky if I can get lucky. That feels like it went in. All right. So I might even check that hanger too. It doesn't look straight either. I'm gonna check the hanger. Well, now she can actually use her barrel adjuster back there. Before it was just for show. All right. I'm gonna be serious, Joe. Nobody's gonna love you if you're not serious. Yo, look at that. That's actually bent in. That's a weird direction. Be careful, because this is on an on-frame. This is an on-frame derailleur hanger right here. So there we go. It's actually quite bent. The bike had a lot more problems than what it looked like. That's how it goes, though. So let's check out the limits here. So that limit looks okay. I mean, it doesn't look. It's on to me. Tighten it anyway. New cable. Tighten it a little bit. Do you feel that? I feel like it's gonna. Yeah, it wants to pop. It wants to pop off the back. It wants to pop off the back. All right, so let's bring that low limit in. Yep, that's the low limit. All right, so once I adjust that limit, I'll drop it one, bring it back, and feel what that throw feels like. Yeah. Look at that, perfect. All right, all that's left to do now on the rear is to cut and cap. All right, let's check out this campy front derailleur. I see these springs right here. They could probably use a little tri-flow on them, huh? Why not? Tri-flow will soak right into that. I just want to see if I can get this. The distance between here and here and here and here is the same. It's got a nice even flow across there. It is within about a penny's depth right there in between the teeth and the bottom of that rail. What I want to see is that it almost seems like it might fall off the inside. Look, it kind of wants to drop off the inside a little bit. So I'm going to throw that low limit in just a little bit. I mean like a touch. Because if you see here, there's quite a bit of distance between this chain and here, but some derailleurs are just like that. Most derailleurs want it to be a little closer. Turn that in some. See, now it doesn't, I can see it's not trying to hang up. Right here before it would pop up. When you would drop down here, it would pop up like this, like it was thinking about falling off the inside. I guarantee you under pressure, it's going to do it. See how now it's not even thinking about. The thing is, I got to tighten up this cable some. It's a little loose. It's definitely a little loose. I always start with cable first. Pulling cable before using the barrel adjuster, because I like to try to save the barrel adjuster for the customer as they need to tighten it, so they don't always have to come right back to me. Sweet, that's done. So the thing I'm looking at here for the brakes is there's a lot of barrel adjustment right here. See that? And it's doing this. Somebody's got this thing out to its limits. So I want to bring that back in. It's not out to its limits, but I still want to bring it back in. And I'll bring it back down here. I'll tri-flow that. And that way the customer has adjustment. Because obviously this is cable. And eventually it stretches where the brake pads go down. Luckily, I'm able to, on this side, I just pull that cable out there, right? Once I could pull this out right here, I could just take this side, pull it out right here, and now I could put tri-flow on this line. I mean, honestly, I should have replaced that back housing. Look at it, it's pulling up and over the Yeah, let's do it. So first thing first here, take this and cut off this cap. No cap. I don't know what that means. All right. Let's see here. That's the problem with these big ends right here, right? I can't get it up into there. And I am not the person that likes to use the long part of the screwdriver to loosen something. So we'll get these. Plus these look like they're hooked up a little differently than I'm used to seeing brakes hooked up. So it's in between those two plates. Let's just chop that off. Nice. Nice. All right. Let's clean these off. That's the rear piece of housing we're going to swap out. And real quick, I just kind of want to clean these threads a little bit. Here. Oh. All right, there that. Go cut a piece of housing. All right, I got my housing here, so let's pull this cable out the rest of the way. These brake cable, man. You can see it comes out right here at the top. Good old Campagnolo. In fact, I'm gonna look in here real quick. See if I can look in here. See if the hole to go back in there is obvious. It looks pretty obvious. Hopefully. Guess we'll find out, won't we? Hopefully this doesn't turn into an absolute nightmare. Alright. There's that. While we have this out, trap flow in there. Put some trap flow in there, mate. There's a little hole right there. Put it in there. Let's see if we can't. I'll give Campagnolo that. Shimano ought to have been sitting there. That was pretty slick, man. All right, let's see if I can't. Cable. All right, bam. That's done. Front brake time. The front brake felt pretty good too. We can adjust it a little bit. We'll pull a little cable, adjust this, and clean that up. That is dirty. So we'll clean this up right here since it's all dirty. And I don't like the way it looks, mate. Yeah, you smacked around. How you like that? Okay. Jay's late. we go. I think I got that one actually a little bit better than the back. There it is, though. That's good. I don't think it'll be noticeable, though. Oh, yeah. Those spokes flexing. That's not like the back brake. All right, functionally, this is ready to go.